It's 40,000 years ago. The fire has burned down to embers. Almost everyone is asleep. And two people are sitting just a little closer than they need to. Not talking, just staying. One of them is deciding whether to close that last few inches of distance. And here's the strange part. That feeling, the nervous, electric, can't look away feeling that one of them is having right now is the exact same feeling you have had. The same chemicals, the same racing heart, the same impossible question. Across 40,000 years, almost nothing about that moment has changed. This is the story of how ancient humans fell in love. And it turns out love might be one of the oldest things we have. Older than cities, older than farming, older, possibly, than our species itself. Here's the thing nobody tells you. We have this quiet, comfortable belief that romantic love is a modern luxury. That somewhere along the way, poets invented it. That before candlelit dinners and love songs and the whole apparatus of romance, our ancestors were just pairing up for survival. A man, a woman, a cave, some kids, the end. No butterflies, no heartbreak. No lying awake at night thinking about someone. Just grim biological function. It's a tidy story. It makes us feel modern and sophisticated, like we invented the good part of being human. And it is almost entirely wrong. Because love, the real thing, the irrational, overwhelming, occasionally ruinous thing, did not arrive with poetry. It is not cultural decoration laid on top of cold reproduction. It is wired into the oldest parts of your brain, and the machinery that runs it is so ancient that we share pieces of it with animals that have never written a sonnet in their lives. To understand how ancient humans fell in love, you have to understand that they didn't have a choice. The same thing that grabs you grabbed them. And it had been grabbing creatures on this planet for a very, very long time before either of you showed up. So let's start where love actually lives. Not the heart. Sorry, the brain. Deep in there, in structures that evolved long before the parts of you that do math or language or worry about your inbox, are two small chemicals, oxytocin and vasopressin. You may have heard oxytocin called the love hormone or the cuddle chemical, which is sweet, and also a massive oversimplification, but it's pointing at something real. These two molecules are central to one of the most important things a brain can do: form an attachment to another specific individual, not just any member of the species. That one, the particular one, the one whose absence feels like a hole in the world. And here's what should stop you. These chemicals are ancient. Oxytocin and vasopressin, or molecules almost identical to them, show up across an enormous range of animals, going back hundreds of millions of years. The basic chemistry of bonding was running on Earth, long before there were humans to use it. Evolution doesn't usually invent things from scratch. It tinkers. It takes an old tool and repurposes it. And the tool it used to build human love was already sitting in the toolbox, worn smooth from age. There's a famous piece of research that makes this almost uncomfortably clear, and it involves a small rodent called the prairie vole. Prairie voles are one of the rare mammals that form lifelong pair bonds. They mate, they nest together, they raise pups together, they grieve when a partner dies. They are, by rodent standards, hopeless romantics. And then there's a close cousin, the montane vole, which looks almost identical and behaves like it has never cared about anything in its life. Montane voles mate and move on. No bond, no nest sharing, nothing. Two nearly identical animals, two completely different love lives. And when researchers looked at why, the answer came down largely to the distribution of receptors. For those exact chemicals, oxytocin and vasopressin, in the reward centers of the brain. The faithful voles were wired to find their specific partner rewarding. The others simply weren't. Love, in other words, is not a feeling that floats free of the body. It is a circuit, and evolution can switch it on or off. Now hold that thought, because here's where it comes home. Humans have that same machinery, the same chemicals, the same reward circuitry, the same capacity to fixate on one specific person, and find their presence intensely, almost addictively rewarding. When you fall for someone and you cannot stop thinking about them, when you feel a little hit of something every time they walk in, when being apart from them is physically uncomfortable, you are not experiencing a modern emotion. You are running a program written into mammalian brains across deep time, refined in our ancestors, and handed to you intact. The ancient humans sitting by that fire 40,000 years ago had the same circuit. It lit up the same way. They had no word for dopamine. They just knew that one particular person made the world feel different. Let's break love down, because it isn't actually one thing. The anthropologist Helen Fisher proposed a model that has held up remarkably well. That what we lump together as love is really three distinct systems, each with its own brain chemistry, each doing a different job, and each far older than civilization. The first is lust. Plain, simple, undirected desire. Driven heavily by sex hormones, lust isn't picky. Its entire evolutionary job is to point you toward the general category of potential mate and get you interested in the project at all. Lust on its own doesn't care who, it just cares that. The second system is attraction. This is the dramatic one. This is falling in love. This is the obsessive, focused, can't eat, can't sleep, thinking about them, constantly state that floods the brain with dopamine, the same reward chemical involved in cravings and motivation and, yes, addiction. When neuroscientists put people who had recently fallen in love into brain scanners and showed them photos of the person they'd fallen for, the reward circuitry lit up like a slot machine paying out. Early-stage romantic love looks, on a brain scan, less like a warm, fuzzy feeling and more like a powerful, goal-directed drive, a hunger. Attraction's job is to take that undirected lust and aim it at one specific individual and then make that individual feel so rewarding that you'll cross a valley, fight a rival, and ignore every sensible instinct to be near them, which, when you put it that way, sounds less like a greeting card and more like temporary insanity. And it is. Falling in love is, neurologically, a kind of beautiful derangement, and it was just as deranging for a human in the Ice Age as it is for you. The third system is attachment. This is the quiet one. The deep, calm, secure bond that grows between two people who have been together a long time. This is the one running on oxytocin and vasopressin. It's less dramatic than attraction, but in a way it's the more impressive achievement because it's what's left when the dopamine fireworks fade. And it's the thing that actually holds a pair together through the long, unglamorous work of survival and child rearing. Attraction gets two people together. Attachment keeps them together. And for an ancient human, that distinction was not romantic philosophy. It was the difference between a child who had two people invested in keeping it alive and a child who had one. So we have the machinery, we have the chemistry. We know, from the biology alone, that ancient humans were fully equipped to fall in love exactly the way we do. But biology is an argument, not a photograph. The obvious question is, do we have any actual evidence? Can we point at anything ancient humans left behind and say, that, right there, that's love? And remarkably, achingly, we can. In a region of what is now Italy, archaeologists uncovered a burial that is roughly 6,000 years old. Two skeletons, a young man and a young woman, placed together in a single grave, facing each other, their arms and legs arranged so that they appear to be embracing. The press called them the lovers of Valdaro, and of course we have to be careful. We don't know their relationship. We don't know if they died together or were placed together. We are looking at bones and trying to read a feeling, which is a dangerous thing to do. But someone arranged them that way. Someone took two bodies and, instead of simply burying them, positioned them in an embrace, deliberately, with care, because something about their connection in life demanded that they not be separated in death. You don't do that for a stranger. You don't do that for nothing. And it is not a one-off. Across the ancient world, in widely separated cultures with no contact, archaeologists keep finding the same thing. Paired burials, two people interred together, sometimes holding hands, sometimes face to face, sometimes with one arm draped across the other. Graves where the dead were given objects that seemed to mark a bond, a shared ornament, a single necklace divided between them. The specific meaning is always uncertain, but the pattern is not. Again and again, across thousands of years and thousands of miles, humans looked at two people who had been joined in life and could not bear to bury them apart. That impulse, that refusal to let death do the separating, is one of the most human things in the entire archaeological record, and it is very, very old. Now, here's where I have to be honest with you. The way I always try to be, because the story is more complicated than a love song. There's a real debate about what these bonds actually were. When we look at ancient and historical human societies, we do not see a single tidy model of two people, freely choosing each other for love and living monogamously ever after. We see almost everything. We see pair bonding, yes, but we also see polygamy, arranged unions, bonds formed for alliance between groups, relationships structured by kinship rules so elaborate they'd make your head spin. For a great deal of human history, in a great many places, who you partnered with was not entirely, or even mostly, your own decision. It was a matter of family, of survival, of politics, conducted at the scale of a few dozen people who all knew each other. So, does that mean love didn't matter? That romance is a fiction we tell ourselves? No, and this is the crucial point. The existence of arranged or strategic bonds does not mean romantic love was absent. It means romantic love was often in tension with other forces, exactly as it frequently still is today. Here's the evidence that settles it. In the early 1990s, two anthropologists went looking for romantic love across the human record. They examined a huge sample of distinct cultures from around the world, deliberately including small-scale societies very different from our own. They were looking for clear signs of romantic love. Not marriage, not sex, but the specific thing. Longing, love songs, elopement, the anguish of being kept from the person you want. They found unmistakable evidence of romantic love in the overwhelming majority of cultures they examined. Not most, nearly all, including societies where marriages were arranged, where romance was actively discouraged, where the official system had no room for it. People fell in love anyway. They wrote songs about it anyway. They ran off with the wrong person anyway, against the rules, against their families, against their own interests. Think about what that tells us. Romantic love is not something cultures teach. If it were, the cultures that discouraged it would have stamped it out. Instead, it keeps erupting everywhere, like water finding cracks in stone. That is the signature of something biological, something built in, something that does not need to be taught because it was already there. And if it's that universal now, across every kind of human society, then the ancient humans who carried the very same brains, the very same chemistry, were feeling it too. The firelit hesitation in our opening wasn't a fantasy. It was Tuesday. But why? Why would evolution build something as disruptive, as irrational, as occasionally catastrophic as romantic love into us in the first place? Falling in love makes you do stupid things. It makes you take risks, ignore danger, fixate on one person to the exclusion of sense. From a cold survival standpoint, that looks like a bug. So why is it a feature? The answer is one of the most beautiful pieces of logic in human evolution, and it comes down to a single, awkward fact. Human babies are a disaster. I mean that with love, but it's true. Compared to almost every other animal, human infants are born absurdly helpless and stay that way for an absurdly long time. A baby deer walks within hours. A baby human cannot hold up its own head for months and cannot survive alone for years. Our enormous brains, the thing that makes us us, come at a brutal cost. They need a long, slow, resource-hungry childhood to develop. And that long childhood created an evolutionary problem. A single parent, in the harsh world of the deep past, struggling to feed and protect a child who would remain dependent for a decade or more, was in a precarious position. Two committed parents, bonded to each other, and invested in the same child, dramatically improved that child's odds. And so the theory goes, love, that obsessive attraction that locks two people together, plus the calm attachment that keeps them together, was favored by evolution, precisely because it kept pairs bonded long enough to get a fragile, big-brain child. Through its dangerous early years, love is not separate from survival. Love is survival technology. The butterflies, the obsession, the can't stop thinking about them, all of that chemical madness has a job, and the job is to glue two people together long enough to raise the kind of slow, brilliant, helpless offspring that only humans produce. The most impractical feeling you have ever had exists for the most practical reason imaginable. There's more, and it's subtle and strange. Human females, unlike many animals, don't broadcast when they're fertile. Concealed ovulation, biologists call it. In many species, fertility is loud and obvious, and mating is tied tightly to it. In humans, it's hidden even to a degree from the person themselves. There are several theories about why this evolved, and they're debated, But one compelling idea is that concealed fertility encouraged ongoing bonds rather than brief fertility-triggered encounters. If you can't tell when the moment is, the strategy that works is to stay close, to stay attentive, to stay bonded all the time. Our bodies may have quietly evolved to make continuous partnership the winning move. Even our biology was nudging us towards staying. Now, let's go back to that fire, because I want to put all of this together into a single human being standing in the deep past, feeling something. Picture them, 40,000 years ago. They live in a small band, a few dozen people, most of whom they've known since birth. There is no privacy as you understand it, no separate bedrooms, no anonymity, no way to swipe through strangers. The pool of potential partners is tiny, measured in the handful of people. Their own age, in their own group, and a few more in the neighboring bands. They meet when groups come together. And yet, into this small, known, exposed world, the same enormous feeling arrives. They notice someone. Not everyone, one person. The specific one. They find reasons to be near them. They feel the dopamine hit when that person laughs. The ache when that person sits with someone else. They lie awake. They overthink. They risk embarrassment in front of people who will remember it for the rest of their lives because that's everyone they will ever know. The stakes of love in a tiny band were, if anything, higher than yours. There was no moving to a new city to escape a heartbreak. You loved and lost and grieved in full view of everyone, forever. And they had the same tools you have to express it, minus the words. We have evidence of personal ornamentation going back tens of thousands of years. Beads, pendants, pigments, things made and worn to be seen, to signal, to attract. The first gift one human ever gave another to say, "I am thinking of you," is lost to time, but it happened, and it happened early. Somewhere, deep in prehistory, someone made something beautiful and gave it to a specific person, hoping. We have the music too, or at least its ghost. Bone flutes survive from over 40,000 years ago. We don't know what songs they played, but we know that the human voice, raised in song around a fire, is very old, and that across every culture on Earth, some of those songs have always been about exactly one thing: longing. The person who isn't here. The person who doesn't know. The person you can't have. Ancient humans flirted. They yearned. They got their hearts broken. They felt the specific, ancient, ruinous joy of being chosen by the one they'd chosen. They formed bonds that lasted decades and bonds that shattered in a season. They felt jealousy, which is just love's shadow, the alarm system that evolved alongside attachment to guard it. They grieved partners so deeply that sometimes the people who loved them arranged their bodies to be holding hands forever. None of this is speculation about whether they were capable of love. The biology is conclusive and the archaeology is moving. The only thing we've added in 40,000 years is the vocabulary. So when you zoom all the way out, what is love, really? It is not a modern invention. It is not a cultural luxury. It is one of the oldest pieces of equipment we carry. A circuit older than our species, repurposed from ancient chemistry, favored by evolution because it kept our impossible babies alive, and so deeply built in that no culture has ever managed to suppress it for long. It predates farming, it predates writing, it predates every love story ever recorded, because it is the thing that all of those stories are desperately trying and always failing to fully capture. And here's where it comes back to you. The next time you feel it, that ridiculous, inconvenient, overwhelming pull toward one specific person, the racing heart, the stupid grin, the lying awake, I want you to notice that you are not feeling something new. You are feeling something handed down, the exact circuit firing in your chest, fired in the chest of a person crouched by a fire 40,000 years ago, deciding whether to close that last few inches of distance. They didn't have a word for it. They didn't need one. They felt the whole enormous thing, every bit as much as you do, and they passed it down, not in books, but in bodies, all the way to you. That's the real love story, not any single couple. The unbroken chain of people who felt this and chose and stayed long enough to hand the feeling forward. You are the latest line in it, the most modern person who ever lived, feeling the oldest feeling there is. So here's my question for you. Do you think love has changed at all in 40,000 years, or are we still those two people by the fire hoping? Let me know in the comments. Until then, take care of yourselves and maybe go tell someone how you feel. The window is shorter than you think. I'll see you soon.